Hi, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Jake. So happy to see you. So today we're going to be working on time, and our objective for today is I can tell time as minutes before the hour and to the quarter hour. So here is my Judy clock. As you learned before in the previous lesson, each number represents a 5-minute interval. So if we go around the clock, starting with our minute hand, we can count by fives on each number. Let's do that together. 5, let's start over. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So when you've hit 60 and the larger hand is on the 12, that means you are starting a new hour. As you can see right now, my time says 9 o'clock. All right, let's take this away for a second and look at today's model. So this is Mrs. Daig's teacher model for today, and I'm going to run through this with you really quickly, and then you'll be able to go off and do some classwork on your own. So this says telling time before the hour. It is 10 minutes to 4. So right now on this little clock here, it says 3:50. So as Mrs. Daig said, each number on the clock is in 5-minute intervals. So if it says 3:50 on our clock, I'll show it to you here on the large clock. $3.50 would look like this. If Mrs. Daig wants to know how many more minutes are left until we get to 4 o'clock, I would count 5, 10 minutes. So we would call that 10 of 3. Does that make sense? Let's try another one. So if Mrs. Daig wants to go back to 2, and I want to put my minute hand here on the 9, I would think to myself, how many more minutes do we have until the hour, which would be 3 o'clock? So I would count 5, 10, 15, and we would say that is a quarter hour, or quarter of 3 o'clock, or quarter to 3 o'clock. So let's look at that again, going back to 2:30. Right now my clock says 2:30. If Mrs. Daig wanted to know how much more time it would take to get to 3 o'clock, I would count in intervals of 5 all the way up to 12. So let's do that together. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So I would say that there is 30 minutes left in the hour for 3 o'clock. Let's go back to our teacher model. So in the first question, it says, it is 10 minutes to 4 from 3:50. Let's look at this clock down here. It is 15 minutes to 10 from 9:45. So Mrs. Daig showed you both of these examples. Let's look at 1A. 4:45. 4:45 is right here where the 9 is. I've showed you this example as well. How many minutes to 5 o'clock? Well, let's count them. 5, 10, 15. So you would put 15 in that box. Let's look at example B. At 6:55, how many more minutes till 7? This one's a little bit easier because you're right here at 7, your minute hand is on the 11, you would just count how many minutes to 12. So I'm going to jump over by 5s or intervals of 5 and say 5 minutes to 7. So let's take a look at the back. On the back, it's just asking to list what time it is. So in the first model here, the little hand is on the 6, which is the hour hand, and the larger hand, which is the minute hand, is on the 12. So this one would be 6 o'clock. If I jump over to my next picture, I have my hour hand on my 6 and my minute hand on my 1. This would represent 6:05. If my minute hand is still on my 6, oh, sorry, my hour hand is still on my 6, and my minute hand has jumped to the number 4, I would call this 6, and then I would count my intervals by 5 for each of my numbers. So I would say 6:05, 6:10, 6:15, 6:20. So let's take a look at this clock. It's still 6 because it has not made a full turn around to the 12. My minute hand has not gone all the way around my clock to hit number 12. So I am still in the hour of 6. So this one would be 6, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Let's look at the next clock. Now, as you can see here, this is where my hour hand has changed. It has gone one full turn all the way around to 12, meaning that my hour is going to bump up to 7. So now it's 7 o'clock. Now I have to count how many minutes past 7. So again, I'm going to count in intervals of 5. So 7:05, 7:10, 7:15. We also call this a quarter after 7 because it's 15 minutes after 7. If I look at this clock, I still am in 7, or the hour of 7, because I have not made one full turn around my clock with my minute hand. So I'm going to count the hour of 7 and around the clock till I get to 10. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So this would be 7:50. Now I want you to take a look at something really important. So I'm going to draw a clock, and I'm going to put a 12, a 6, I'm going to put a 3, and a 9. So this would be o'clock. This would be 30 minutes after the hour. This would be a quarter after the hour. And this would be 45 past the hour. So if I go ahead and fill in my numbers around my clock, I have 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So just to recap, if Mrs. Diggs' big hand is here and my little hand is here, this would represent 3 o'clock. But what happens if Mrs. Diggs' big hand changes and my little hand changes? And I have, let's see, I have a different time on my clock. It's still within the hour of 3 because I have not made one full turn up to 12. My big hand has not gone all the way around the clock yet. But what happens when my little hand is still pointing to the hour and my big hand is pointing down to my 6? That would mean that this is 3:30, written like this. And we also call that half past the hour because this hand has made one half turn around my clock. So this says 3:30, this is half past the hour. If my big hand looked like this and was pointed directly at my 3 with my little hand, then we would call this a quarter past. The hour. So I would have a quarter past an hour, a half past an hour. And what do you think this one would be if my larger hand was still on the clock here? Well, here's my little hand, and my larger hand was still on the clock, but it was pointing to my 9. What do you think we would call this? So I'm gonna pause for a second and let you think about that. Okay, you guessed it. This would be a quarter to 4 because my little hand would be kind of somewhere here, which would mean that it would move as my minute hand moves. So my hour hand would be closer to the number 4, which would represent 4 o'clock. So this one would now be a quarter of the hour 4. So a quarter of is the correct answer. Half past means you have hit the halfway mark, or number 6. And a quarter past the hour would mean that you have hit number 3, which is a quarter past the hour. So this is not like, boys and girls, this is not like money, like where you have 4 quarters equals $1. That's not the same thing. We're talking about quarters around the clock in time. So you have 15 minutes, you have 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and you have your o'clock. All right, this ends today's lesson. You have some classwork to do. If you have any questions, we can chat about it in the video when you watch it. So we'll see you in a little while. Bye-bye.